Here we're looking at the computer Trac 350 monitor. This monitor has been around for quite some time and it's very similar to a 250 if you've had a 250. What we want to do is we want to go through the setup portion of the monitor. And to get to that portion, we're going to hit the setup select button right here. So I hit the setup button. Okay, the first thing it brings me to is setting my high warning. So if I want to put in here, say I'm going to plant 30,000, if I want my high warning to go off at 35, or if I'm planting 35 and I want my high warning to go off at 40, this is where I'll put that in. So we'll go ahead and we'll set a high warning of 40,000. Now notice I've got two buttons here. I've got digit select, which moves the little arrow to the digit that I want to change. And then I've got my 0 to 9. So we're going to make this one a 0. And I'm going to move to my next digit. I'm going to make it a 4. I'm going to move to my next digit. I'm going to make it a 0. So right now my high warning is at 40,000. Now the decimal point is my comma. So again, I'm at 40,000 at 40.0. The next thing to set, I hit my setup select button again, is my low warn. And it's set at 20,000. And we'll just go ahead and leave it there. But you can set that to whatever you would like. I hit my setup button again. Now this is my area counter. Notice I've got a number 1. It says area number 1, and I can zero this out. This one happens to have 5,800 acres on it. So if I want to zero it out, again, I just use my 0 to 9 button to set the number to 0. Move to the next digit. I set it to 0. Move to my next digit, so on and so forth. Now there's another one. If I hit setup again, now I have an area 2. So I can use one that can just run constantly over the whole planting season, and then I can reset number 2 for each field, or I can just let them both run. It's kind of however you want to do it. So I'll go ahead and zero it out as well. You do it the same way. 0 to 9, hit the digit to move to the next digit, so on and so forth. Hit my setup button one more time. Now this is my rows. If I want to shut a particular row off, let's say I'm having a seed tube that's giving me kind of a hard time, and I've checked it out, it's planting correctly, but I just think I have a seed tube sensor problem and I want the monitor to quit beeping at me. I go to the row, and right now I've selected 1. I can count up through the rows to get to the row that, say, row 10 is giving me a problem. And then I hit this row on, row off button. I just turn row 10 off, and then I turn row 10 back on. So I can pick about any row on the planter and shut it down if it's giving me an issue. My row spacing, this planter happens to be 30 inches. If I have a split row planter, that's going to be 15 inches. It doesn't matter if you're planting corn or beans, it's always going to be 15 inches. But this happens to be a 24 row 30 planter, and so I'm going to leave it at 30. I hit the setup button again. This is my number of rows. Again, on a 30-inch planter, it's pretty simple. Just count your rows, and that's what you have. On a split row planter, it's the same way. If I've got a 1631 splitter, I'm going to have 31 rows in here. If I've got a 1223, I'm going to have 23 rows in here. So split row planter or 30-inch planter, the total number of rows on the planter need to go in here. Hit my setup button again. This is my distance calibration for my radar. Now we recommend that you calibrate your radar to get an accurate seed spacing, an accurate seed count. This distance cal, this is the factory default, is 7836. Now to do that, the easiest way to do it, if you've got a John Deere tractor and you're plugged directly into the radar, there's a distance cal feature button right here, and we'll go over that in a little bit. The other way that I've found works pretty good, if I hit my area button and it tells me I'm running 6.9 miles per hour, and I just drive the tractor through the field, and if they match, then I know I'm good to go. If they don't match, I'm going to hit my setup button. I'm going to go back down to distance cal. If I need to make the monitor go faster, I want to lower this number. If I want the monitor to be slower, then I need to raise this number. So it's kind of an inverse. So let's say, for example, this monitor is showing 6.9 miles an hour, and my tractor radar that I know is accurate, I've calibrated it, is at 6.5. So I need the monitor to show a slower speed, then I would need to raise this number. And you do that the same. You just choose your digit and then use your 0 to 9 to change the digit to the correct number. My implement width should be calculated correctly. So 24 rows, 30 inches, 720. Now if you put in 31 rows at 15-inch spacing, that's going to give you a 465, and you want to leave that in there. My split, this is not a split row planter, but if it was a split row planter, again the 1631, I would go in and I would turn my split on. And then the PA is population adjust, and I want to leave that at 1.0. So that's going to cover the setup part of the monitor, and we'll go over the operations of the monitor next. Okay, now we're looking at the operating page on the monitor. I've got one button that has three main functions of the monitor as you're going through the field. I've got a scan, I've got a min, a max, and an average, and then I've got a fast average. Now the two you're probably going to be using are the scan. So if I press this, it's going to scan, it's going to start, and it's going to run through all the rows, starting with row 1, and it's going to go to row 24 or however many rows that you have. The next one is a minimum, a average, and a maximum. Notice here on the monitor, it says my max population is 35.2, my minimum population is 35.2, and my average population is 35. Now this is on a simulator, so it's not going to look exactly like what you'll have. But let's say, for example, that one row was planting 36,000, and my average was 35,000, and I had a row that was planting 34,000. It's going to show you the highest row is the max, then you're going to have the average, and the minimum. The minimum will be the row that's planting the least amount of corn, and then this would be the average over the whole planter. So that's min, max, and average. Now fast average, you're probably not going to use that a whole lot. It's more for soybean planting, when you first let the planter down and take off, it's going to get to that average population quicker. But the two you're going to run most of the time is your scan, which again starts at row 1 and goes through row 24, and then your minimum, your average, and your maximum. Now if I have a particular row that's giving me a problem, I can go over here to row select, and it's going to let me select the row that I want to select, and it's going to stay on that row. For example, right here, row 21, it's just going to stay on that row. So if I had a seed sensor maybe I thought was giving me a problem, I can sit there and watch row 21 only. Now if I have another row fail or something of that nature, it'll go ahead and still warn me if row 12 fails, for example. But it'll let me watch row 21 without it scanning through the other rows. So we'll go back to scan. Now if I want to, right now I'm looking at population. If I want to look at my spacing, I just press the pop spacing button. And this is just an average. This doesn't have anything to do with your actual spacing. It's just saying that at this speed and at this population, my average spacing is going to be, so it's going to say 5.9 inches. Most guys are going to watch the population page, and right now it's showing on 35,200. My area speed button, right now it's showing me I'm running 6.9 miles an hour and I've covered 5.9 acres. So I just touch the area speed button and it'll continue to show, it'll count acres and show you your speed. Most of you probably have that on your tractor monitor, but you can get it read out on the 350. So we'll go back to our scan page. Now for those of you that have split row planters, I've got this one set up as a 24 row split planter, so it'll be 12 row 24 split. Now when you're running the monitor, when you switch to beans, you're going to not have split here. It's going to look just like it looks now, and it's counting every single row. Notice it goes row 8, row 9, and it'll count all the way to 24. Now when I go to corn, I'm going to turn the split on, and what it's going to start doing is counting the even rows only for my corn. Now again, keep in mind this is a 1224, so I have soybean rows all around. Here's what you'll get if you happen to get a low warning. Right now it's saying rows 2, 4, and 6 are planting a low warning. So that's a good example of what it would look like for low warn. But again, for beans, I'm going to have the little word split will not be there. For corn, I need to have the split, and it calculates all the row spacing and all that for you. So I turn that back on, back to all the rows, and it'll go back to my normal run page. But again, split is on for corn, and split is off for beans. And here's your power button, obviously, right here to turn the monitor on and off. You just touch the on button or the off button, and then turn it on. It'll do a little preload, and then it'll come up and it'll start showing you your population. Now here it's going to start counting up here pretty quick once it starts going. When you first start out planting, after you turn the monitor on, it'll start counting up like that until it gets to the calculated population, and then it'll start scanning through the rows. So now row 1. And then it should start scanning. There's row 2. So that's going to take care of the operation.